or watching the recording, finding accommodation in the Czech Republic and specifically in Prague is very difficult. And I did a video last week about how much it will cost you to rent an apartment in the Czech Republic, meaning what all the different charges there might be or the different costs you might experience and you might not even think about. And today I will kind of cover a topic which is similar to that, and I mentioned it in the previous video, and that's about the dirty tricks real estate agents use to get your money. Now, it's honestly speaking, it's not as bad as it used to be. I would generally say that real estate agents in the Czech Republic are getting more and more reliable, because when we started with the business 12 years ago, moved to Prague, then at that time, 12 years ago, a real estate agent was the position where you went, like which you went to do if you had no other option. If like no one wanted you, you went to do a real estate agent. And honestly, 12 years ago, it really looked like that. There were so many, there was a statistics where, I don't know how many, like there was 10 million people in the Czech Republic and there was like 100,000 real estate agents or something like that. It was some crazy amount, like compared to the like per capita, that was amazing. So everyone basically who didn't have any other option, they worked as real estate agents. So it was very bad. I've seen like very bad contracts and I've seen very bad behavior, all that. It has been significantly changing. And I would say that now majority, I'm not saying majority like 99%, but majority meaning more than 50% of real estate agents are actually reliable, and they are not trying to rip you off. As sometimes I hear not our clients, but I hear foreigners saying that there is a difference between like the Czech real estate market and foreigners real estate market, that someone is trying to rip you off or everyone is trying to rip you off just because you're a foreigner. I don't think it's actually like that. Of course, there are differences between renting to Czech citizens and like foreign citizens or non-Czech citizens, but I think that's the same everywhere, because there are some like there are different aspects like higher risk and stuff. So it's I think it makes sense. I'm definitely not justifying anything like any of the practices I will be talking about or anything like that landlords might do to you because you're a foreigner. On the other hand, I don't think there is some like specific group of landlords like targeting foreigners just to rip them off. But anyway, now there have been many changes. Now you cannot really do a real estate agent if you don't pass an exam. So it didn't really change much on how it was before, because everyone who was already working as a real estate agent could do it, could continue doing it without taking the exam. So it didn't really improve whatever was happening before. But at least now, if you want to become a real estate agent, you need to pass an exam. So the quality is getting better. So you don't need to be generally worried that all the real estate agents would be bad in the Czech Republic. But there are just some things you should be aware of, you should know about, and the video is about that. So sorry for the long introduction, but I just wanted to kind of give you the idea of what I'm or why I'm doing this video and what it will be about. So let's go through some of the things I think are important to know. I'm not saying those are complete like rip-offs or something super bad, but just something to keep in mind. I'll start slowly. First thing is that generally speaking, the commission you have to pay to a real estate agent when you're getting an apartment from them is 1 month rent, equivalent to 1 month rent. But then there are different variations, because depending, even if it's 1 month rent, it can mean a different number with different real estate agents. Some real estate agents would have the 1 month rent already including VAT. So if your rent is 20, you pay commission 20 and that's it. In some cases, the VAT is not included, which means 21 extra percent. So if your rent is 20, then your commission will be 24. In some cases, real estate agents calculate the commission just from the rent, like the net rent. Some of them calculate it from the rent plus utilities. And if you like look at the difference between just base rent already included in utilities, so let's say 20 in total, and the situation where they add the utilities, so let's say 25 plus VAT, which is another 5, then the commission is 30 compared to 20 with basically the same rent. So this is something you should definitely keep in mind and ask them in advance if this is important. Of course, if like 10,000 crowns doesn't really make a difference for you, or 5,000 crowns or 3,000 crowns, whatever, or you really like the apartment, so you don't really care how much you pay them as long as you get the apartment, so that's completely fine. You don't need to worry about that. But if the money part is important for you, then this is definitely one thing to check, like how exactly they calculate the commission, from what part, if just the base rent or if the utilities, if they include VAT or not. So all these, find it out. Second, especially if you go to the biggest portal, I'm not sure if I can name everyone I will be talking about. So there is this one big real estate portal in the Czech Republic where most people look for apartments in the Czech Republic. I will not name it. If you go there, there is a big difference between the Czech version and the English version. And again, I think in most cases this is not on purpose to just like disadvantage foreigners or something. It just means that it's more work for the agent to translate, to first write it in Czech and then translate it into English. So probably just some agents just don't translate it because they either are lazy or they don't have the time for that, or foreigners are not the main target group for them. So there might be different reasons for that. But the thing is that if you switch on this big website, you switch to the English version, for many apartments, I would say most of the apartments, you will not really see any detailed info, which kind of sucks from the information standpoint, but also the same applies to the prices. Okay, so if you look at the advertisement in English, it might say 15,000 crowns rent, and you say like, perfect, I found a perfect apartment, it's in Prague 1, 15,000 crowns, perfect, I will contact the real estate agent and we'll get the deal. But if you switch to the Czech version, you will actually see all the details. So it's like 15 plus electricity, plus gas, plus internet, plus you pay this and that, and that. And then you might actually end up paying not 15,000 crowns, but 20, 22, depending on the apartment. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going through this big real estate website, search in English because it's easier for you to filter and all that. But then once you find or shortlist the apartments you like, then switch to the Czech version and then just Google Translate or whatever, because you get all the information you need mainly from the Czech version. If something is not clear, ask the real estate agents. So how much is the utilities? How much is the electricity? Is there common charges, or the common charges for the building are already included in the rent? All these are legit questions. They should tell you, and that's the only way how you can calculate the actual rent or the amount you will be paying for the apartment. Actually, we've just had a case like this, that a person will be looking for an apartment with us, or he actually is, I think, already right now. But he said, okay, my budget is this, let's say 21,000 crowns. I don't want to go above that. And he sent a couple links which he liked, like some examples of what he liked. And when I checked the links, basically all of them were above 21, because it was exactly this case. Like the base rent was 15 or 16, 17, whatever. So it was like way below. But then all these additional charges basically made it way higher, way above the budget of the person. So you need to be very careful about this. Search in English, but then once you shortlist the apartments, switch to Czech and just Google Translate to get more information. Yeah, so the most important thing is that usually the rent advertised is without utilities. So you need to, if you want to get to the amount you will be actually paying, you definitely need to add the utilities. And utilities can vary a lot. It can, for a studio, it can be from 500 crowns a month if you use recuperation of the air and like if it's a new apartment building, for example, to 4,000, 5,000 crowns if it's an old apartment in one of the old buildings, and maybe there is like gas heating or electric heating. That would be probably the worst. So you need to be very careful. The difference between the rent and the rent plus utilities plus internet plus some other things I will be talking about might be very significant. Now, there are a couple companies which I kind of dislike working with, but again, I will not mention their names because this is not like about me shaming the companies or like saying something. I don't want to do it. I don't have anything in particular against those companies, so I definitely don't want to like badmouth them or something like that. So I will not name them, but the thing is that you should be aware of these things existing, so you can make an informed decision when you are choosing an apartment. So one thing is that there are a couple companies, I would say two main ones, where they don't charge you commission, but they charge you a renter's fee, which basically means that you pay something extra every month on top of the rent, which kind of makes sense. Like from the business point of view, they rent it from the landlord for some amount of money, and then they rent it to you, and they do the management, so they need to have some fee there. Usually the fee should be coming from the side of the landlord, because that's to whom they are doing this like service or providing this service. So that should be the landlord paying this kind of fee, but it's not like that. So just be careful, because in some of the advertisement it says like something like renter's fee or tenant's fee or whatever, and you should definitely ask them, okay, how much is that? Can that change in time? How is it determined? What is it for? Can I not pay it? So things like that, keep it in mind, because honestly that can also vary this kind of renter's fee. These two companies also have one thing in common, that usually if you want to use the lease agreement for your immigration purposes, so for your visa or residence permit or whatever, that can be very difficult to get all the documents together, because how it works is that there is the owner and there is the lease agreement between the owner and this management company, let's say. But the lease agreement, they often don't want to provide it to you because there is the original rent they're paying to the landlord. So you can see how much they are charging you more, and they don't want to see it. So they often like scratch the numbers, or they don't want to give you this original, or obviously they don't want to give you the original, but they don't want to make a copy of that, give it to you, all that. That's one thing, because if you make an official copy at the post office or a notary, then you should not scratch anything. You should not cover any numbers. You should not cover stuff like that. Question is, if they do it after they make a copy at the notary, if the Ministry of the Interior will accept it, if the embassy will accept it. So it's kind of already questionable from the immigration perspective, but understandable from the business perspective. Another thing is that then they have a sublease agreement between you and themselves, but all these thingies have usually been signed by different people, and those people are not representatives of the company, so they also have powers of attorney. So it's usually like power of attorney for a person who gave a power of attorney to some other person to do something. So usually the problem with these kind of management companies is that you need to, if you actually want to use the sublease agreement, you need another like 5 different documents, usually powers of attorney and the original lease agreement, for your proof of accommodation or for your sublease agreement to work for the immigration. And this, in the beginning, it used to be very, very difficult to get something from these 2 companies primarily. And we fought with them, and it used to be like weeks before we could get all the documents from them in some cases. Now it's better. Now they're more prepared, so usually they can provide those documents. So that's why I'm not trying to shame them or anything, because they've been improving, and it's okay. It usually works now. It just means that you will need to be super careful. And honestly, if you don't speak Czech, I don't think even that you can check all the documents, because all the powers of attorney and all that are in Czech. And it also depends on when it was signed and who was the director of the company at that time. So if the person was actually allowed to sign these documents. So it's a bit more complicated, and you should be aware of this. This is a general thing. I've done some videos about it as well. So refer to the renting in the Czech Republic playlist if you want to know more. But there are other things you should be careful about if you want to use the lease agreement for your immigration purposes, but this is one of the most important. Yeah, then there might also be apartments which were just rented. So you call them and say, yeah, we don't really have this apartment anymore, but I can offer you something else. I don't think this really happens that much in the real estate business. It happens a lot in a car business, used car business. I would say like 20% of the cars you see online, the cheapest ones, do not exist. They maybe existed, that might be a real car, but that was sold like 3 years ago. And now they're on the website just to get you to the website, because you see, okay, this is a car I like and it's very cheap, so I'll call them. And then you call them, and then they can sell you something else. This is still a very common practice in used car business, which is whatever. I will not comment on that either, but that's still a pretty common thing in first century. Anyway, I don't think it's that much of a thing in the real estate business, but it can be there. But usually if they tell you it was just rented, that often means that they don't want you as a tenant, and this is just the easiest way to deal with that for them. So sometimes it might really be just rented, because the market in the Czech Republic is like super hot. So all the apartments go like this. So if you like wait a day to make the decision, you might lose the apartment. And sometimes the real estate agents will try to push you, saying, hey, we have another 2 people interested in the apartment, all that. I would say in most cases in the Czech Republic, it's not just like a game with you to put a pressure on you, so you decide and you take the apartment. I would say that it's in many cases it really is the situation, because for every apartment you see online, there is like 50 people, 100 people, for some apartments even more, like 200 people that are interested in the apartment. So there is obviously a big competition. Then the final word is on the landlords to the final decision whom they want in the apartment. So you might be more attractive for some landlords, because they like to travel, or they lived in the country where you're from, so they might prefer you from someone else. But in some cases it can be the other way around, that they just don't want anyone from your country, or they don't want a foreigner in general. So this would be just a way to tell you that they don't want you as a tenant. But in many cases, I would say that there is really a competition. So it's not that much of a technique to make you stressed and make the decision fast. But it might actually be the real situation. Another thing related to this, like the pressure, when I'm talking about the pressure, there is one thing which is still happening. I've seen it happen recently. It used to be very common in the past. Now it's not that much, but I've experienced that. And that is that the agent will try to pressure you into paying their commission and signing the reservation contract. Basically, if you don't know what reservation contract is, because it's kind of difficult to understand if you've never experienced that, basically, usually real estate agents have some apartments they are offering. They put it on all the different websites and they take anyone to see the apartment who wants to see the apartment. It's like simply said. And then if you say, I want this apartment, they will tell you, okay, we will stop advertising it for some amount of time. Usually it's like 10 days or 2 weeks or 5 days, whatever. But we want you to pay a deposit or a reservation fee in amount of 1 month rent, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we don't advertise it to anyone else. So that basically means that they kind of keep the flat reserved for you. You don't have to take it. The landlord doesn't have to take you, but they don't really advertise it to anyone else. The kind of problem with this, or like the how it works, is that if you change your mind and you don't want the apartment, they will keep the deposit because that's the reservation fee and you backed up from the contract. So that's a penalty for you to back up from the contract, is that they keep the deposit. So, or the reservation fee. So don't let yourself be pushed into signing this reservation contract before you have actually seen the actual lease agreement, what you will be signing. Because there might be so many problems with the lease agreement. I've talked about it in another video. There might be so many things that can go wrong. They might not be the owners, or the flat might not be a flat, or the contract might be just like in favor of the landlord and not at all in favor of you. Or there might be some weird things in the contract, some illegal things in the contract, in the lease agreement. So you should always see the lease agreement first, have it checked first before you pay any reservation fee and before you sign the reservation contract. And again, good real estate agents will let you do that. They will send you the draft of the lease. There might be not all the information, or that might not be the final version of the draft, but it at least get the idea of what's in the contract. You should definitely always check the ownership of the property, the status of the property, so you see that this will work legally for any purposes like immigration or anything else you need it for. Okay. So if someone is trying to pressure you into signing the reservation contract, paying the reservation fee without showing you the lease agreement, like leave the apartment, leave this agent, because that's not good. Yeah, check the lease. I talked about it. So yeah, I would say this is the most important, or these are the most important parts or things you should focus on, and the kind of tricks or like the specifics maybe of the market which you should keep in mind when you're renting an apartment in the Czech Republic, not to lose money, not to lose your sleep, not to find yourself in some difficult situation which you might not need to end up in if you followed or if you knew about these things. So let's I will now read the questions or the comments that are here, and then I will go home because now it's officially tomorrow already. Low level folks, Iran. Hi, I'm Mahdi from Iran and I love your content. Is this live limited to a specific topic? Yes, I usually do. I've done like 350 videos about specific topics. But when I run out of topics or nothing is really happening in the immigration field or something, then I do the open questions, live streams, but today is not that. Today is topic specific. Magde, please, I would like to ask if I stop working in a company, how many months I have to find a new job. So that's not really related to this topic, but generally speaking, 60 days, but it depends on the type of residence permit you have and the job. Daily Sigma Dose, I want a student visa, but I can't arrange a bank statement. What should I do? Ask me some other time when I do the live stream with Q&As, or get in touch. Stephanie McLeod, sing beautiful things. What does it mean? Is beautiful things some kind of song I should know, and should I sing it for you? I don't think that's happening. Omar Designs, good evening, Mr. I'm back again. Thank you very much for joining again. It's been quite some time again. Boss Production, is it possible for asylum seeker apply to work visa in the Czech Republic? Again, not really related to this topic. And Omar Designs, I'm sorry for the long time gone. I'm really running out of time to get the official invitation letter from Cezetu. Yeah, I read the email. Sorry to hear that. Hopefully this will be sorted. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much, all of you guys, for joining. And I will see you again Monday, Thursday, until the end of the world. Good night.